do you know what a vaccine is, but not really is the only thing you know about vaccines, is that everybody else is talking about them. Are you overwhelmed by the amount of info all about vaccines, but you don't really know where to start? Well, you come to the right video. Hi, I'm Kylie, your local science nerd, and this segment is called BAKUNA. What? Like the dragon? I swear, I always sneak in references that I'm not even sure people understand, but if you did, hey! Anyway, today we get to learn about all the actual important stuff that you need to know about vaccines. So none of that anatomical, chemical names, whatever, just the most important stuff. So, what is a vaccine? Well, the most vital ability of a vaccine is to be able to pretend to be a virus or a bacteria. They're kind of like Ditto, the Pokemon. But you might be wondering, what even is the point of having an ability like pretending to be a virus or a bacteria? How's that supposed to help us? Well, first, you have to know how the immune system works. So, think of your immune system like crew members in Among Us. And if you don't really know how Among Us works, it's kind of like you're all crew members. Well, not all of you. Some of you are imposters. And the job of the crew members is to figure out who in your group are the imposters, and you have to kick them out because the imposters, they're gonna mess some stuff up in your ship. Think of our immune cells like crew members on a ship. Their job is to keep the ship running. The ship in this case is your body, and every once in a while they'll see something that looks sus or suspicious. So they go to hit that emergency button, and that alerts all the other crew members, all the other immune cells, that it's time to carry out the most important task of all, which is to get rid of imposters. And I hope whoever's editing this is animating the imposters that I'm shooing away, and if not, what happens to the ship if we don't get these imposters and kick them out? Ship crashes, everybody dies, everybody gets murdered. Same thing with our bodies. We don't get rid of these imposters, body's not gonna work very well, we probably would die. Well, I, for one, am a fan of not dying. Thank God for our immune systems. However, while our immune system certainly works hard, it's not a perfect security system. A lot of times throughout our life, our little crew members may encounter intruders that they're not quite familiar with. So they'll just start doing lots of different things, like maybe trial and error, because they're not yet familiar with these intruders, and they don't know the best or most efficient way to get rid of them. So it might take a little longer for our immune systems to fight them off, or sometimes the intruders are just too good at their job and our immune system loses the fight because they were not prepared. Maybe these intruders got some fighting techniques that our immune cells are just like, holy balls, what the heck is that? What do we do? And they literally just try everything, even though like there is a clear, more simple solution, but they don't know about it. But thankfully, our immune system has pretty good memory and is really good at learning. So after they've encountered the unfamiliar intruder the first time, they know exactly how to deal with it the second time. Well, maybe not exactly, but they're like significantly more efficient at knowing how to kick them out. So now that you've got like a weird storytime version of how our immune system works, let's go back to vaccines and talk about how vaccines can help out our immune systems do their job so much better. So, reiterating what I said in the beginning, the vaccines just look like the intruders. Emphasis on look, because they don't actually have the abilities that can harm our bodies like real intruders. But because they look so glaringly suspicious, our immune cells are kind of looking at each other like, hey, let's get rid of these guys, and I'll tell all our other friends to get rid of them too, because who the heck are they? They don't even go here. But anyway, now everyone knows there's like suspicious looking guys in the body. And so they get to work and they figure out the best, most efficient plan to deal with these intruders without the actual internal war that goes on in your body, because they're not real, they're fakes. There's no real battle going on, just kind of like training practice. So now that the immune cells have gotten some sort of practice with these training dummy imposters, oh my gosh, the analogy just came to me. Vaccines are training dummies for our immune cells, so that when the real intruders come in, they're like, hey, it's those funny looking guys again. They're back, except these are real threats this time. And they know how to efficiently carry out what they have to do to get rid of them, because they've already seen them before. By now you must be thinking, wow, vaccines are pretty cool for helping out our immune system. I know some of you are still probably like, but do we really need those things? They're just like a boost, right? Wrong. Imagine if you had to find yourself performing surgery on a person without going to med school or having any practice on a training dummy or any alternative simulation. What are the odds of you performing that surgery successfully the first time? Not very good. Our immune systems being able to have a training dummy of a vaccine saves lives. Our lives. There are a ton of different diseases that are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous than COVID, but are not getting hyped up just as much because guess what? They don't hurt us anymore. Because of what? Vaccines! There's polio, tetanus, mumps, chickenpox, influenza, Hep B. There's a lot. Friends just edit them floating around me because there's a lot. I can't remember them. And that's my point. Some of these are totally eradicated, meaning they're no longer in this world. But sadly, some have been coming back because of this really harmful trend of people deciding not to vaccinate themselves or their children. And that's a whole other topic I'm going to get into in another video. But nonetheless, vaccines have changed healthcare for the better. Human beings are hella fragile. But we survive thanks to our innovativeness. And thanks to the brilliant minds that have created vaccines, we don't die from getting tiny cuts or scrapes on our knees. It's not something we even have to think about. I bet a lot of people don't even realize that this is what some people died from back in the old ages. So you may not even fully realize the magnitude that vaccines have in our world today, but this at least should give you a general idea of how necessary they are to humanity's progress. Alright, now that we know what vaccines do and how important they are to global health, maybe you're still not sold, because what even are those things? I don't even know what I'm putting in my body. Probably misleading because I'm not actually going to talk about the specific ingredients of every brand, but I am going to talk about the main types of COVID vaccines that are available in the Philippines. There are 4 different types being offered in the Philippines right now. I don't know if they're all being rolled out or just being offered because our government is kinda, I'll say it, slow! But moving on, here is the first type. Number 1. Genetic mRNA vaccines. These are vaccines that deliver one or more of the coronavirus's own genes into our cells to provoke an immune response. The popular brands of vaccine that fall under this type are Moderna and Pfizer. So let's break down how this works. And if you remember high school biology, mRNA is what is eventually translated into protein. The protein that will be translated from these mRNA are called spike proteins. Spike proteins are what are found on the surface of the COVID virus, and these are the identifiers for intruders. Let's just paint a picture of all intruders wearing funny hats. So think of spike proteins as the funny hats. So when our immune cells see someone wearing the funny hat, they're like, hey, it's those guys with the funny hats. Kick them out. These vaccines deliver instructions for the funny hats. Our body, for whatever reason, how they work, start making these funny hats. Our immune cells are like, hey, it's those sketchy looking hats. And then they start preparing to fight these hats, even though they're just hats. They're not a threat. So that's how these types of vaccines work. Vaccine type number 2. Viral vector vaccines. These are vaccines that contain a different, harmless virus engineered to carry coronavirus genes. The popular brands that use this method are AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Gamaleya or Sputnik 5. Okay, don't be alarmed by this. I know that the idea of injecting a virus in you to fight another virus just seems counterintuitive and frankly bizarre, but let me just explain this further. We already know that viruses are really good at getting into cells. That's how easily it is to get everybody so sick. But scientists kind of went, hey, maybe we could change this up a bit and use this to our advantage. Basically, what they did is that they developed a technique to engineer the virus so that it retains its ability to quickly get into cells, but removes any harmful ability of the virus to make us sick or give us any fever. The virus that they've created is then completely harmless and essentially can only be used as a package or an envelope, and it becomes the perfect delivery case to deliver the COVID immune response instructions. These instructions are very similar to what we've mentioned earlier. They are the instructions to make the spike proteins. Spike proteins that we now know are needed to trigger the immune response in our bodies. With this type of vaccine, you might hear the word adenoviral, and that just means that the virus that they used as the package for the COVID instructions are adenoviruses. And again, they aren't actually infecting you or anything, it's just a package. Vaccine type number 3. Protein-based vaccines. These are vaccines that contain coronavirus proteins but no genetic material. Some vaccines contain whole proteins and some contain fragments of them. The brand that uses this is Novavax. Unlike the first two, this one already has the proteins made. So there's no need to deliver a set of instructions, it's literally just the proteins themselves that are being delivered directly into our bodies. So this method kind of bypasses the steps of DNA to mRNA to protein. It's really just protein. But this method, along with the first two, are kind of mostly effective against these specific strains that they use to code for those spike proteins or for the spike proteins that they use. Current studies do show that these types of vaccines could still be effective against new strains that might pop up, but maybe at much lower efficacy. The answer to that is really just more research. Vaccine type number 4. Inactivated vaccine. These are vaccines that are created from weakened coronaviruses or coronaviruses that have been killed with chemicals. The popular brand that uses this is Sinovac. While the other methods only use a part of the coronavirus, the spike protein, or a code for the spike protein, this type uses the entire virus. But it still is harmless because it's not live. It is not active, it can't do anything, it's just essentially a shell. In theory, what would be really good about these types of vaccines is that they should, again, in theory, be more effective at protecting against new strains that may arise compared to the other types of vaccines that are very specific to the strains that they used when they were creating them. And this is because they use the whole vaccine and there are lots of other proteins on the whole coronavirus other than the spike proteins that our immune system could still recognize and try to fight off. And so those other proteins are the parts that don't really mutate, I think. So if a new strain were to arise, our immune system should be able to recognize those non-mutating proteins and still be able to fight them off. Again, this is still in theory, still more research needs to be done in order to be more conclusive about this. Now that you know the basics of the types of COVID vaccines available, we will be going more in depth into the specific COVID brands available in the Philippines or being offered to the Philippines. But hopefully, now you get a better picture of how they work and you can make a better or more informed choice of which vaccine you'd like to get for yourself. So to conclude this segment, are vaccines worth it? The short answer is yes. And I know many of you are going to start bringing up all these rumors you've heard about vaccines, like, oh, it has egg in it, oh, I can't take it if I have allergies, oh, there's a tracker in it. There's a lot, and I will get to them as we start rolling out the rest of this COVID guide series. We're all working, so give us some time, but we will get to those, and you'll know for sure if those are truthful or just some lies we've been told. Anyway, thank you for joining me again today. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. In the next video, I'll be going over the many rumors surrounding the COVID vaccines. Shortly after that, we will be answering the question, which vaccine brand is the best brand? Is there a best brand? Keep watching our COVID guide series to find out.